All right, guys, we have given everybody a few minutes to get in and get comfy. So, as people filter in and out, I'm going to be talking. And if you're in this workshop, then that means, my friends, you are here for the Dealing with Dementia workshop, How to Build Your Own Care Team. So, before we get started, we at the Rosalyn Carter Institute for Caregivers never start any workshop, any presentation, any training without giving you a quote to start off with. And it's only fair that we start with one of our founders' most famous and well known quotes, in that there are only four kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. So, with us at the Rosalyn Carter Institute for Caregivers, RCI, as you'll hear me refer to it later on in our presentation, we believe that caregiving and caregivers are a major part of our life. They filter in and out in different sections of our life, and caregiving will touch our lives at one time or another. So, it's important for us to recognize that and to be supportive of all the caregivers in our world. So, a little bit about me and about the RCI, just to get you a little bit of knowledge. I can get my screen to flip, part of our new Zoom world, right? We were founded in 1987. We are a little over 34 years old right now, and we were founded honoring our former First Lady and caregiver herself, former First Lady Mrs. Rosalyn Carter. Mrs. Carter understood what caregiving was from a very early age. Her father became terminally ill with leukemia at the age of 12. Her mother had to step in and take on that primary caregiving role, and Mrs. Carter had to step in and manage the household and manage taking care of her younger siblings. So Mrs. Carter has a deep rooted passion for caregivers and caregiving supports because she understands the loneliness, the isolation, and the stress that caregiving can bring. RCI is really looking at setting a new path for how we interact with caregivers and how we champion their needs. We do that through cross sector partners. You're going to hear about a really fun activity, a really fun thing that you can interact with and become a part of. Later on, I'm going to tell you about it. We also promote evidence based programs. What you're about to go through today is a small snippet of one of those programs. The Dealing with Dementia program is one of our evidence informed programs. However, we do have a roster of evidence based programs that we promote through our partnerships and deliver through outside organizations as well as internally at our national office. We also advocate for public policy. We really look at the needs of caregivers and how we can get resources from our policy work to our caregivers, especially our rural caregivers, those caregivers that feel alone and isolated in their role. We want to get them the resources and help that they need. And who am I? And I'm going to take this thing off so you can just focus on me. Who am I? My name is Lezlie Poole. I am RCI's Program Innovation Manager, which is a very, very fancy way of saying that I get to, with my awesome and amazing team, get to create programs and training and presentations and workshops like the one we're going to go through today. So, get us started. I'm going to give you a couple of really simple definitions. So at RCI, one of the first things that we always do with caregivers is we talk about care teams and how important they are and how everybody should have a care team. Even if you have a roster of people that you depend on and you call on, we want you to be really intentional about how you organize that work and how you look at it in helping you through your caregiving journey. So at RCI, we really simply define a care team as a collection of people that are supporting you in your journey. So as we go through this workshop today, I want you to know I'm going to be interactive. I want you to be interactive with me, however you feel comfortable. There's a few of us in the room. I have found the chat button, so you can interact with me through the chat function, through the emoji function, however you feel most comfortable. I want you to interact with me. So as we get started with talking about care teams, I'm going to ask you some questions. We're all in a caregiving world and a caregiving life. If you're here with me, I'm a caregiver myself and have been one in the past to my grandfather who had Alzheimer's disease. for about the last 15 years. He passed away last year, but it was a really awesome journey. And some of the things I'm going to tell you about are things that I have done in my own journey that have been really helpful and supportive. So we're going to start off the workshop with some questions. Like I said, you can do the emojis if you want. You can do the chat. I'll try to check it as much as possible. But here we go. When you think about a care team, and when you think about those people that are on your team and the idea of putting all of that together, does that sound impossible to you? Does asking for help from family and friends make you anxious? That's a big one for me. Asking for help is always so hard. Are you afraid that something bad will happen to the person that you care for if you are not there and you're not the one that watches them? Oh, that was a biggie for me. Biggie, biggie. Scared something's going to happen. Or are you telling yourself, I don't know if I really need help. And if I did, I wouldn't even know kind of what kind I would need. I'm a little lost in this world. Yeah, that was me for a long time. And I'm going to tell you that most of the caregivers that we interact with that come through our programs answer yes to most of these questions at some point in their life. It's important. It's where we go in our journey. So when we look at a care team, we need to understand that at some point in our life, we're probably going to answer yes to all these questions. We're probably going to be really overwhelmed, and it seems impossible to put our team together in a really intentional, mindful way. It's really anxious and anxiety provoking to think about asking somebody for help, because what might you hear? The dreaded word no. Ugh, everybody hates that word. So when we look at a care team, we really need to go back to the fundamentals. Really need to look at, why even build a care team? What is the purpose? And like we said, like I told you in the beginning, we define a care team as those people that are supporting you in your journey. And I like to think of them as teammates. They're the people that are going to help me win the game. They're going to, we just got done with the Super Bowl. They're going to help me get the goal, get the touchdown, win the game. They're going to help me in this journey. And yes, I know dementia is a hard, emotional journey. It ends very, very tragically. There is no cure, so the end is the end. But we can make that journey really well rounded. We can have really good things in that journey. So while you're thinking about a care team, if you've already built one, look at re-examining it, look at freshening it up, adjusting, reviewing it. But if you've never built one before, I'm going to tell you that building a care team is one of the most important things you can do at the beginning of your journey. It's also one of the bravest things you can do, because we are humans. And what does that mean? It is impossible for us to do everything we need to do without missing something. We're going to miss something, right? We're going to make mistakes. That's just inevitable. That's the world that we live in. That's how we are as humans. And that's fine. That's awesome. We recognize that about ourselves. But when you think about building a care team, why wait for a crisis to happen? When you hear that sound go off and they're telling you there's a major storm coming your way, or some big thunderstorm or tornado warning, you don't wait till that happens to prep. You have a plan, right? You know what you're doing. So when we think about care teams, they're helping us be prepared, because if we aren't prepared for the what ifs, something really bad could happen, not only to us, but the people that we care about. And I'm going to tell you from personal experience, I think care teams are wonderful because it really helped me do two things in my caregiver journey while I was going on it. First thing it helped me do is it helped me organize my caregiver life. A caregiver life is really, really busy, and we're really, really busy doing it. So it helps us be organized, and it helps us kind of see where we're going and what our journey is going to be. And the second thing that a care team did for me, and probably I would say one of the most impactful things, is that in my darkest times, when I felt completely alone and completely isolated and just didn't know what I was going to do, I could pull out that profile, that list of people I had that were on my team that were helping me win the game, and I could see that I wasn't alone. And we know from the caregivers we've interacted with in our programs and the data that we've done and the research that we've done, we know that when we don't feel as isolated, we feel more hopeful. And when we feel more hopeful, we're more confident about the journey that we're going to go on. Dementia caregiving is a long journey, and it can be really hard. So being able to see that somebody's there can make all the difference in the world. So let's move on and let's talk about setting up your care team. And I'm going to drop something in the chat. It's going to be a link. So please feel free, use it, use it, use it. This link, if I can find the chat again, this link is going to take you to a place that you're going to hopefully enjoy, and it's going to have lots of good stuff for you. So I'm going to share my profile, share my screen again, and I'm going to let you see when you click on that link, it is going to take you here. It's going to take you here, and you're going to notice two very important things for a workshop today. One is a care team takeaway. That means that while we're in this space together, you don't have to feel like you have to write everything down or miss some of what we're sharing and what we're learning about care teams. All of those notes are already taken for you in that form. So that takeaway sheet, this one right here, it has all the notes for you. It'll help you when you kind of digest the material, start thinking about it, and want to kind of see where you can input the care team and how you can set it up. The second thing you're going to see is an RCI My Care Team profile. And when you click on that, it's going to take you here. And this is our profile, our care profile that we give all of our caregivers. So all of our caregivers in our program start off with this very basic care team profile. And I'm going to spend some time going through it, and I want you to think about it. We've done some of the panels today. I don't know what panels you guys were in, but hopefully it was some exciting ones. I was in the one with Seth Rogen and Amy Poole, and we were talking about your needs as a caregiver. So one of the first things we're going to go through when we're looking at this form is, what are your needs? So there's a difference between your goals, your wants, and your needs. What do you need to be a successful caregiver? Is that you have a very strict schedule that you have to follow. So we need to be mindful of that. Is it that you have certain eating preferences that you must follow? Things like that. What are your needs to be successful? Do you have something that you need to know 72 hours in advance if you're going to be invited somewhere, so you can make plans and have the best success with your loved one? This profile can be kept with you personally, or it can be dispersed among your care team so everybody knows what they're doing, where they're going. The cool thing about this, when you click on it, it is fillable. It's already fillable for you, so you can start using it right away if you want to. But again, a care team and a care team profile is whatever you think it needs to be. I've seen them done in Excel. I've seen them done in PowerPoints. I've seen audio, video, whatever you feel most comfortable, design that. It's designed to be for your needs. Then you're going to look at this second thing. What are the needs of my loved one? Do they have a schedule they have to follow? Is there a routine they need to have in place? Is it that they need certain things at certain times of the day? This helps you and your care team be really mindful about what's happening around your loved one. Remember, you can only be so many places at one time, and your loved one can only be so many places at one time. So we want to make sure that the two align and that both of the needs are being met. A caregiver is just one part of who you are, and we don't want to forget the rest of that. Another thing that we put on this that we think is really important for caregivers to think about are, what are your goals? Goals as a caregiver can be anything. Are you working full-time and you want to work full-time as long as possible and still care for your loved one at home? Are you in school and you want to stay in school and give care to that person you love? What are your goals? Or is your goal, so my grandfather, when he was going through Alzheimer's and going through that journey, we sat my grandmother down and kind of asked her, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to see happen? And, in her journey, in her caregiving journey, one of her goals was just to keep my grandfather at home as long as possible. And that was a really intentional goal of hers. She wanted him to be cared at home till the end. And that was her goal. And that's what we wrote down. And then we finally get down to the fourth thing we're going to work on is who is actually on your care team. And I'm going to tell you 3 pieces of advice for this. Have the name, the task, and the contact. You got to have all 3 of those things in order to have a person successfully be on your care team, okay? And really think about what they're doing. I'm going to get into some specifics later about how to match up people to the task and how to ask them. And then another thing that's really important for us in a dementia world, if you're caregiving to somebody with dementia, you understand that communication is different. Processes are different. We're not the same person we once were. It's a progression of a disease. So when we look at this thing right here, what is the information my care team needs to know? So if you have a care team member that's going to step in, you have a doctor's appointment, or you need to go run an errand or do something, and somebody's going to step in, that care team member needs to know how your loved one communicates. So if they're having a hard time producing verbal language, what's a trigger for them? What are some things that your care team needs to know and that you need to be reminded of to kind of help understand the triggers so we are not getting agitated or aggressive or just shutting down completely. We want to keep that person happy and healthy for as long as possible and keep us happy and healthy as long as possible too, right? So with that, if we look at triggers, is it crowded spaces? Is it lights? Is it not following the schedule? And what are those early warning signs that we're going to a place that's going to be bad? We're getting more irritated, more agitated. And one of those things like shuffling and pacing, repetitive questions that we're starting to get on the roller coaster is what I call it. We're going up, 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 up until we just burst and we can't take it anymore. What are those early warning signs and those triggers that we can make us and our care team more mindful of when we're going through it? And then another one that's really important when you're thinking about putting together your profile, what are your loved one's other current conditions? They might not just be suffering from a type of dementia or living with that. Maybe they have diabetes or problems with their blood pressure. Those are important things for us to know and to keep in the back of our head when we're going out and we're trying to be as independent and as engaged as possible. So be mindful of that. Another thing that we put on our care profiles just to be helpful and to have everything in one place is what medications your loved one's taking. So if somebody helps take your person to a doctor or you're away from them and something happens, what kind of things would somebody need to know in order to provide them the best care? So really think about medications, what things they need to know, and then who are their health providers. When you're going into an appointment, it might be really beneficial when a doctor says, oh, you need occupational therapy. Oh, I already have occupational therapy. This is my healthcare provider. This is who I use. Being able to store all that information in one place is really beneficial. And then really looking at pharmacy, somebody takes your loved one to the doctor, know what pharmacy they're going to use if they need medication. If they're going to need the insurance card, what does that look like? So again, this is a very basic profile, really designed to kind of get you started in that journey. So everybody still with me? We still good? All right, we're going to move on and I'm going to talk about some very important, I see a hands up. Thank you. Anna, thanks for coming in with the emojis, hot and ready. So with a care team profile, when you looked at this one that I just pulled up for you, you notice that I included 2 very distinct but important parts. When you're making a care team profile, you cannot just have a care team that's built of just family and friends. You also need to include the professionals. Remember, a care team is a well-rounded kind of structure where you have those family and friends that know your loved one, that have been with your loved one. But then you also have the professionals, the doctors, the therapists, the people that they go and see on a regular basis to help with their continuity of care. And also as a caregiver and really designing your care team and your care team profile, I'm going to tell you, don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself to just having friends and professional kind of help you on this journey. Be able to include your loved one, the person that you're caring for, including them. So, how fun is it to be talked about when you're in the same room with somebody, right? It's not very fun, is it? So, think of that in the same concept of as you're making a care team profile, what does that mean? If your loved one is still able to, and they're still at a section in the disease progression or in their life where they can still participate in things, they can still be an active member, keep them on there. And maybe one of your goals is to have them be as independent as possible and let them do simple tasks that they can do that makes them feel like they're part of the team. So that can include like washing dishes. That was part of my grandfather's goals. He wanted to wash dishes as long as possible because it made him feel included. It made him feel part of the family unit. And I'm from South Georgia, if you couldn't tell by my accent. So in our world, in my section of my community, it's important to have a big kitchen. So what we didn't realize, and why my grandfather was so adamant about keeping those small, simple daily tasks, and we were like, Grandpa, we can put those in the dishwasher. You don't have to wash dishes. But to him, the kitchen was the heart of the house. It's where we all gathered as a family. It's where we all ate meals. So even though we were having these meetings about decisions that we need to make about his care, if he was able to wash dishes, he could still be in the room with us. He could still participate. And he felt like he was still part of things and he wasn't missing out. So remember, when you're doing this, take your loved one into account. Make sure they're included in this process. So with that, I'm going to give you some care team tips that we can go through, okay? So when we're doing this and we're looking at a care team, what do you think one of the most important parts is? Think about that for a minute. What do you think an important part of your care team is? And it's going to be really simple. It's going to blow your mind. And it's something that we find in our programs that people overlook. They assume we have all these people on our team, but they haven't asked. Yes. If you want somebody to be part of your care team, part of your teammates, helping you on your caregiving journey, helping you get the touchdown, get the big win, they have to know, right? So as you're working on establishing your care team, who's doing what tasks, who can be really helpful in this journey, we have to make sure they're okay with it. We have to talk to them about it. We have to make sure that they feel included and that they know they're part of our care team. Remember, and I'm going to say this several times, no one is a mind reader. No one is a mind reader. No one knows what kind of help you need or how to help you if you're not telling them, if you're not being honest and communicating what that means for them. So remember, as you're working through setting up your care team, okay, who's doing what task? Who's going to help you if you got to go to doctor's appointments, if you want to go out to eat, if you need to go grocery shopping? Make sure you're telling them. Make sure you're asking them. Make sure they know that you're counting on them for this thing. All right. Another thing I can tell you that is a make or break with care teams and in a caregiver journey is prepping. Okay. Making sure you're thinking ahead. So when you're thinking about what a care team can do for you, think about what you have coming up. Do you have doctor's appointments? Does your loved one have doctor's appointments? Is there holidays or birthdays, things that you need to celebrate, that you want to celebrate? What are they? How can we start thinking ahead? And I'm going to tell you that preparing and being prepared in a caregiver world is your saving grace. It is what helps us stay sane and stay together. We're preparing for any events that may come up. And by thinking ahead and preparing, it also helps you see who and how your care team can help, okay? We don't want to wait until the actual event, to the day of, till it's go time, to really call somebody and be like, oh, hey, I really need you to come help me. Well, I've got some errands I need to run. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. Think ahead. Be preparing. Be planning. Preparation is key, and it'll help you understand really who and what their schedule is and how you can match that to who can be on your care team. And I'm going to tell you another tip. When you're creating your care team and your care team profiles, and you're asking all of these people to come with you on this journey, and I'm telling you, they're going to be excited that you asked and you sat them down. I've never heard anybody that regretted being on the care team. But when you're doing that, and you're in this process, and we're in this journey, and we're going along, and things are happening, make sure you show all of your care team members appreciation and respect. They're part of this team with you. They need to be on this journey with you. And in order to do that, they have to feel like they have buy-in. They have to feel like they're wanted. So one of the things that I tell everybody, thank you goes a long way. It goes a long way. A simple thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Goes a long way to show your care team that you appreciate all that they're doing. You're not taking it for granted, and you so respect that their decision was to come and help you. I'm also going to tell you that when you make your care team profile, you're going to have to make decisions. Dementia is a journey full of decisions, and they can be all hard. It seems like it's a big deal. You're caring for somebody else that you love. So when you're talking amongst your care team, and we're going to get into some more of this in just a few minutes, but when we're talking about our care team and we're talking about all the things that we want to do, make sure that you as the primary caregiver are confident in the decisions that are being made. Okay, you are the expert in this. Okay, and don't be afraid with getting creative with matching up team members with tasks and needs. Let us see what they're about. I had an aunt that was skilled in yoga, and she would come and do chair yoga with my grandfather, and that was her task on the care team. You can be creative as much as you want to be. Another thing I want you to take into account, and a tip that we have learned at RCI through working with all of our caregivers, is to take into account what your loved one feels most comfortable with and who they feel most comfortable with. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to tell you a story. My grandfather, when he was progressing in his dementia, and we were all making big decisions over what that care would look like, we knew we were kind of getting to this really pivotal point in this disease, this section, of what that would mean. And we knew that there was going to be some issues with bathing and getting dressed every day. Those were some of the skills that we were losing in this journey. And so while my grandfather had a really good day, we were able to kind of sit down with him and ask him, you need help with bathing and you need help getting dressed every day. Is there somebody that you feel comfortable with? And my grandfather was very honest in his answer, and I just love it. He looked at us and he said, oh, I have 9 grandchildren, and I wouldn't want any of my grandchildren to help me get dressed or bathe me. I want to still be in their heads, their grandfather. I want them to look at me and think of all the times that I was really here and I wasn't sick and I could do all these things, right? I could be there. I don't want anybody to see me anything but as a grandfather. And so then we're like, well, what about grandma? What about your wife? And he was like, oh, I have been with that woman since she was 16 years old. I just don't want her to see me as anything other than her husband. So at the end of the day, it finally came to, let's look and see what resources we can get in. And would you feel comfortable with a nurse? And my grandpa was like, yes, I would feel much more comfortable for a nurse to come in and help me do these things, or your uncle. So really looking at how a person feels most comfortable. Remember, nothing is worse than talking about somebody when they're in the room with you. And with people with dementia, that is a common thing. They're still early on in their progression, so they can still participate. They can still be involved. So we want to make sure that we're meeting them where they're at and that we're including them in this process. The next tip I'm going to tell you, and this is a biggie. This is a biggie for me. All right, is to be brave and flexible in asking for help. All right, I'm going to throw out a question. Who has ever been told no? Anybody got any emojis they want to throw up in the chat? Who's ever been told no? How did it feel? Oh, it's terrible, isn't it? It feels like the worst. I'm going to tell you something that somebody told me very on in my caregiving journey, and I've kept it close to my heart. And every time somebody tells me no, I think about this. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You ask somebody to help you with a task, to help you something with your caregiving journey, and they say no. It's okay. It's okay. You have to be willing, as the expert, the primary caregiver, to let that no roll off your back. Just let it roll on down. You know why? Because people are going to tell you no. You're in a hard place. You're on a hard journey. No is a common word. All right. So if somebody says no to you and the happenstance that they do, let it roll off your back. Be willing to go on to the next person. Be willing to hear that and move on. And I'm going to talk about this in a few minutes because it's okay to hear no, because I'm going to tell you there's a lot of reasons why. All right. And we're not mind readers. So we don't want to automatically assume they said no because they don't like us. Yeah, we don't. I see you, Anna, in the chat. Yeah, it's okay. Right. There could be lots of reasons, and we're going to get into some of those reasons. Just remember, if somebody tells you no, be ready to move on to the next one. I've got a whole list ready. I'm ready to go. You said no, that's okay. I'm moving on, going to the next house. All right. So another thing I'm going to go through really quickly because we're running out of time. Oh my goodness, I'm a talker. All right. When you're working with professionals on your care team, those professionals that are helping you, I'm going to tell you, you need to be ready with the information to give and get the best care. All right. You need to come to that appointment ready. You're on. It's go time. So how many of you have ever been in a doctor's office and you get there and you have all these asks that you want to do and all these things you need, and you get there and you just freeze and you're just like, oh, I completely forgot. What were we doing? Yeah, it happens. We're in such a busy state doing so many things. So it can happen. It's there. It's okay. You just need to keep in your mind, you are the expert in caregiving. You are the expert in giving care to this individual. They are your person. You're their person. Don't be shy and wait till they ask for input, okay? If there's a recommendation that makes you feel uncomfortable, speak up, say it. Because remember, after you leave that appointment, you're on. It's your turn. You're the one that's going to have to carry all of that through. So you need to make sure that when you're getting recommendations, when you're getting referrals and things that you need to do, that you're comfortable with it and you know what's going to happen. Okay? Speak up if it doesn't make you uncomfortable, if it makes you uncomfortable. So make sure that when you're getting these recommendations that you know what you're asking for. This is my ask. This is what I feel comfortable with. This is what I need to discuss. Be calm in discussing that. Take a deep breath. And if it helps, call in one of your care team members, somebody that you trust to role play with. At RCI, we're big believers of role play and how it can help us kind of navigate the what ifs and the points where we feel like we're going to mess up. All right. I'm going to tell you another quick tip before we move on. How many of you have ever felt like you were being ignored or not taken seriously in a doctor's appointment with your loved one? That is something that happens. Yeah, and it's a common thing. We've heard it a lot in our work that we do with caregivers. I'm going to tell you something that was also mind-blowing in my caregiving journey and working with a care team, especially with the professionals on my care team. If you feel like you're not getting the best out of that professional, if you feel like we're not meeting halfway and we don't understand each other, it's okay to go find another professional to talk to, okay? It is okay to find somebody that you can talk to that you feel like understands you and that you feel like you can understand. That is good. That is okay. That is you advocating for what you need to care for yourself and your loved one. All right. So before we leave, I'm going to go over not really quickly, strategies for dealing with family dynamics. That's hard, right? What are your worries in asking some of your family or your friends to be on your care team? It can be really scary, right? Are you scared of hearing that dreaded no word? Or are you worried that you're going to have to manage everybody else's competing demands and priorities? Yeah, that's common. What we suggest you do when you're developing your care team, when you're getting everybody on board, start having family meetings. Start having meetings where everybody's on the same page. You know what you're doing. You know how it's working. And make sure when you're doing this and you're having those family meetings, you're paying attention to your loved one's wishes. Are they able to participate? Are they able to tell us what we need? Make sure that if your loved ones have advanced directives or any kind of information to tell you what they need or what they want, like my grandfather, his wish was to pass away at home, was to stay at home. And that's what we did. We paid attention to that. We brought that up in our meetings, our family meetings when we're decision making, because it was really important that we respect that, that we try to honor that. So when you're going through your family meetings, again, I'm going to say it again, no one is a mind reader. Don't assume your care team knows what your needs are, and don't assume that you know what your care team needs. Your care team needs from you. Make sure you're having a discussion. And with that, get to the real reason. If you feel like there's tension, all right, that means we got to go through it. Get to the real reason. If somebody has some tension with you, make sure you're asking why. It could be that they're uncomfortable with dementia or don't understand what that means. So make sure you're getting to the real reason. Also, before you leave, please make sure you know we are offering, HFC is hosting with us a full Dealing with Dementia workshop where you can come one of the 4 days and you can have the full Dealing with Dementia workshop. Remember, you only got a snippet. I'm going to put, it's going to come out in the follow-up email, okay? So make sure that you're looking at it, following up. You'll see it in the follow-up email, okay? And feel free to download the Care Team profile. If you are having someone that needs it, please pass it out. And if you need me, I'm going to put my email in the chat. All right, I have my email in the chat. If you want to reach out to me personally, please, please, please feel free to. I am always there to help anybody. I hope you all have a great day, and I am so excited that you came. Thank you for giving me some of your time.